You know, and it's like it's time. It's like if this music is the music of the future, which like okay, it hints at that, but really what I think it is, it's like it's a music that's like the intellect and the body at the same time, and that's rare. That is very rare. So it's synthesized like a lot of different music forms into one, and it's like this kind of like meeting point of stuff. And I just find people that like really like to get down like the music. You don't have to know it. You don't have to know its history. You just have to hear it.
It's music that is definitely enlightening. It's pushing the limit of technology. I mean, you know, it's definitely the future.
It's like magical happens when you start to play with keyboards and drum machines.
Electro is the science fiction of music. If the people that are kind of anti-new technology were around 30 years ago, electro wouldn't have got started.
We like sci-fi movies, we examine them. When we found out that this music was kind of related to that, and then we latched on to the whole Kraftwerk robot type thing, it was like, wow, this is what we really into.
The more people that hear electro is the better, because the reason people don't like it is because they haven't heard it.
First time I heard Electro, I used to tape a lot of pirate stations, and I heard this one tune, hip hop bebop. All I remember was like just taking my boombox out and playing it to my friends, just going, "Oh, you've got to check this, man. It's just like the baddest music I've ever heard." Like, and it's sort of stuck ever since.
Sound at that time was a huge scene in Europe, especially in the UK where I live, you know.
In the early 80s there was a series called Electro series on Street Sounds.
And every kid was out there who had a boombox, had those tapes or those records and was breaking to it, and that was how it was really big at that time.
When I was 13 years old, on the schoolyard, breakdancing, looking at the girls, try to impress them, you know, with the vinyl stuff on the floor. For me, that was the start. Electro has always been there for me.
Electro was the music that basically got me started into this. As a b-boy, as a graffiti artist, then as a sound engineer, then a programmer.
And then it died out. It died out for like...
Sort of about 85, sort of, everyone sort of stopped doing it. Hip-hop,
more mutated into hip-hop, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the confusion in this country is that that's what people think electro is only. They think that's what proper electro is because of that series. which covered mainly the hip-hop and electro-funk angles. People are saying a lot of the synth-pop stuff isn't electro. This is like the model was electro-pop, it's not electro-funk or electro-bass tune. Yet that's Kraftwerk. And to call Kraftwerk not electro is, well, it's a sin, basically.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
People like Man Parrish, Arthur Baker, really want to thank those guys for basically making those marks in the music industry. The production, when I listen to it today, I mean, they were ahead of their time.
There was no West Coast sound yet. The sounds of New York, Planet Rock, I think it was Electric Kingdom, Twilight 22. Those kind of sounds, I was a DJ at the time, and those kind of sounds were the main thing going through my mind when I went to the studio to make my songs, and also Kraftwerk, of course.
I think that it doesn't become electro until it leaves Kraftwerk and Arthur Baker, John Roby, and Africa Bambaataa put their spin and made Planet Rock. I mean, I think that's the beginning. That's the start of it. That's the first record. Before that, Kraftwerk, I say, like, proto-electro. Like, they're definitely the blueprint, but it changes when it becomes this, you know, American music form, and it takes off in areas never really expected before. That 12-inch era. A 12-inch song would, you know, after Planet Rock, after Looking for the Perfect Beat, you would get an album's worth of ideas on these, like, electro 12 inches. Like, it, just in, you know, Egypt. I mean, there's, like, it breaks down in the middle, has another song in it.
I could have heard a bad edit go, the record skip. But I took it and said, okay, I'm going to do this with it, make it be on beat. So Egypt was like almost a mega mix of all these things that happened in my head, and I put them all down on track.
Electro scene never died. It was just there was not too many people doing that music anymore. But if you go to any club, any cabaret, anything in Detroit, when people start dancing and you got the whole crowd on the floor, it's going to be dancing to Planet Rock, Clear, Cosmic Rain Dance, Numbers by Kraftwerk, Luke, Egyptian Lover. Oh, people will get up. The Steel.
Detroit techno was kind of born out of, I mean, it comes a little later, but it evolves out of this scene that was like this high school party scene where, like, in the late 70s, early 80s, people were doing like these themed parties. Really hip high school kids. People really knew what was going on. And, like, you have to go back in time. Well, see, like that Charivari era, you know, it's like, it's really, you know, interesting to think about these high school kids that, like, you know, they grew up with, like, their social conscious parents and stuff that, like, were all into, like, you know, soul music and Motown and this, like, remembered thing, and these kids wanted to make something new that was for them, that was their generation. It's like every music form begins as, like, generation gap music, like intentionally alienating my parents' music.
At the time you had Juan Atkins, Eddie Fowlkes, Kevin Saunderson, Jeff Mills, you know, all playing at the same party.
That's the roots of Detroit techno. Go more synthetic, bring in more European influence, everything that would be counter to what your parents would want, I guess, or expect for you to do. Though there is direct soul music influences all throughout Detroit techno. It's just that original era has that, it's kind of like this rebellious attitude, but you can feel like the direct influence. Black science fiction music from a decaying urban center, from a place nobody ever expected the new technological advanced music form to come from. You couldn't blame it all on Detroit techno, but it was like largely the spark, and you can see its influence directly in so many of the popular subgenres that exist today or throughout the 90s that spread the music around. Derek May and Kevin Saunderson's specific sounds changed the way people were making music in England, Belgium, and Holland. Instantly. Germany kept on with its like kind of EBM industrial dance thing, but in those places the music started to shift and change, and it's changed from new beat into this kind of rave music that brought some really exciting music. Did it predict future pop culture? Did it predict what the Neptunes would do? Did it predict how techno, R&B, and hip-hop would become?
It needs to be said that it's quite Detroit influenced, at least it was in the beginning when we released the Lucky Bastards and Other Side.
I think Keith Tucker's done some wicked stuff over the past, just been relentless. So
the groups that I'm really inspired by and the groups that I'm really into, I would definitely say are mostly stateside, like Underground Resistance, Drexciya, Doppler Effect.
You know, thanks to groups like Drexciya and Doppler Effect and all those Detroit guys, they really did keep the ball floating, do you know what I mean?
It's not wrong when people say like, yeah, Detroit, that's where it started because this is where it changed. You know, if Africa Bambaataa was the person that made Kraftwerk Electro, then we're definitely the spark that changed the Chicago idea, which was a change of the New York disco idea. We're the spark that altered that made it so it could take off in Europe.
As good as techno is, it did really get in the way of electro, and I think people now are suddenly realising that the best parts of that were electro, really. There's a hell of a lot of electronic history in the UK that was like Cabaret Voltaire and Ultravox and Human League. They were doing stuff in the early 70s, experimenting with synthesizers, which was kind of like later developed in Detroit. They kind of had the same thing going on, but it was like 10 years later. It was all going off even in those days. Like New Order, when they did Blue Monday, the engineer for that was Michael Johnson from the Johnson Crew, things like that. Rusty did Time Zone's Wild Style, so that was like part of Visage record, and you know, most people think of that as a real true b-boy tune. It'd be good if that kind of scene progressed again today.
I think that's another really important thing, is to understand the future, you've got to understand the past. So you should be able to, at least respect the past. More importantly, it's just music at the end of the day, and that's what, the whole thing is about. Be it, electro, techno, house, dub, or whatever, it is just a feeling. And
you got like electro techno, you got electro disco, you got electro funk, electro hip hop,
electro rock. You have the new wave. You got the electronic ambient scene,
electro pop, everything. It all stems from one thing.
All those styles are electro.
And there isn't actually a real electro. Electro is just, it's not a style of music, it's a way of making music.
Electro is not a kind of music, it's a way of approaching a kind of music, and that you do that with electronic gear.
analog synths just fit that kind of science fiction fantasy. They look like they look like the set of science fiction movies.
So we started just like experimenting with everything we got. We didn't do anything about the studio technique or recording or anything. We just started doing.
I think we were supposed to turn in some new songs for Sight Beyond Sight, and we turned in the wrong tape. We just turned in our electro stuff. And that's when Darkbeat heard it and said, "Oh, wow, we didn't know you guys do this."
At that time, that's what we thought everybody was doing, tweaking and adding. And the time when Metroplex was still forming, we would sneak over and watch Juan and stuff from the cars. We'll go home and be like, "Man, I got to do this," and come out with all these different sounds and everything. Keith would spend time on the sound like for weeks. So you can imagine I'm writing lyrics, he's spending time on sound, other guys doing beats, and when you would come, you get this big bass gumbo ghetto stew.
A lot of people in the neighborhood thought we were all kind of like strange, nerdy type guys, because we was listening to this strange music. And then when certain groups like us and Drexia and D-Trekno came out and started doing stuff, it was best to not even tell people who you were. Because as soon as they heard the tracks, it's like, oh, it's hot. They playing it on the radio and everything. But as soon as they find out it was a little local group or whatever, it's like, ah, it's okay. You know, so we had, I think that's how the whole underground thing kind of kept evolving from what Kraftwerk did. Keep low key, don't say nothing, just keep it like, you don't even see what the group looks like. You don't know who's in the group.
Bring the drum machine to the dances and playing the drum machine live and playing records on top of it.
Sort of like with the same thing that happened with house music, how those guys were playing 909s with the beats, we were just doing it with electro beats. And really hadn't even heard that they were doing that. We just thought it was just something to add to the party.
And a lot of people were saying, where can I buy that record? So like, I don't know, let me research that.
And man, I remember Reckless at the time. That was the song. And we programmed the beats exactly the same. And then people would say, wow, was that a special record? Because the beats, we didn't hear the rest of the keyboard parts. It was just beats.
Yeah. So I went to a couple of studios and found out how much it cost per hour and kind of recorded it on my own. So it was kind of like a blind venture going into it, but it worked out pretty good.
Our shows consisted, when we first started, of a Dr. Rhythm, a Korg DDD5,
Casio CZ101.
All CZ101s. Everybody had Casios. Now, that's the awesome board to use. I mean, just a little toy then, and
Speak and Spell.
Strings. Yeah, we used Speak and Spell back then. We were getting those sounds that people are trying to get now out of those synthesizers. Plus, it was low budget.
I was always trying to discover where they had this warm sounds.
Anyone watching this or anyone hearing this who knows what it's like to be in a studio just knows that something magical happens when you start to play with keyboards and drum machines.
Well, my idea that I have in my head when I make a track is always basically to go in, start off with some rhythm patterns, and then basically, build up from that. But first step and the main step is always work on the rhythm, the rhythm is very important. I mean, this is what's going to get the people moving. Everything else that you add is just basically, just the identity of your track. But the rhythm is very important, and the sound of the rhythm, and just trying to get all that organised is the most important process for me anyway to make my music.
I don't turn on a machine and mess about and think that's amazing. I think that's an easy way out. I think that's the machine making the music. I mean, I use machines to make music. I love machines, but the idea is the most important thing.
Sometimes we sit down and think, right, okay, we're going to do this kind of track. But you only need a flick of a switch. That's what I love about electronic music. At the flick of a switch, press of a button, click of a mouse, you can end up at the end of at the end of your studio day somewhere totally different than where you started. That's the joy of it.
There was a tendency to it be more separate. That they would have engineers, they'd have a producer, they'd have the ideas, but they'd work with engineers and producers. So I think it was hard to get the full artistic, kind of a real personal message across if you've got to do it through an interpreter, through an engineer or a producer, whereas now it's more and more people that can do it all themselves. To me, the technical side is creative now, it's all totally blurring together.
If you can take a plastic box and wire it via your heart and soul and your feet and make a record, that's how I judge. To me, good electronic music is music that uses the process to produce something soulful, rather than just sitting there being interested in the new computer program and going up your own arse with sound manipulation. I mean, it's important, But the end result and communicating with people is the most important thing. You know, it's using that process. Computers are they're just plastic boxes. They're there to be used.
Necessary evil, right?
They rule for recording. For that, it's kicks like a DAT machine's ass.
I used to be totally analog guy for years, and I've been on a total digital bender for the last 4 years. But I just love working in the computer. I love that intense, the cleanness of it and the kind of intensity of it, the sharpness of it.
We haven't used computers too much, although the kind of the myth that we don't ever use a computer is, I think everyone's kind of coming to realise that that can't be completely true, which it isn't, and it's an area that we do want to move into. You know, like I was saying earlier, we want to get into this crunchy, glitchy kind of sound, but at the same time retaining, you know, the punch and the warmth of the analog stuff.
I wish I was good enough at writing software to make my own plugins and make my own software. I mean, there's some people doing that.
No soy tampoco un defensor de batallas, usar solo hardware, usar solo software en el estudio. Puedo usar lo que me motive en ese sentido, pero bueno, quizás me llega mucho más la máquina, ¿no? Me llega mucho más el hardware.
People just like the character of old vintage equipment. So, like Electro is funk. So, with a lot of digital equipment, you don't get the funk, the rawness. So, that's why you have Moog, for example, or Korg machines. Or
Korg MS-20, MS-50.
The Moog source.
EMS up to
sequential stuff, sort of drum tracks. Pro 1, the Pro 5.
System 700.
El Access Virus y el NOR modular.
Vocoders and stuff, which I use on mostly all my electro stuff, actually. So yeah, I'm more into the old analog stuff.
The Mini Moog was the first portable synthesizer that wasn't big and modular the way the older ones were, but it created a new sound where rock and roll engaged it, funk engaged it, the early techno, all these different styles of bands grabbed that Mini Moog and created a whole texture of sounds. Wendy Carlos, she actually created a whole album using the Moog Modular, which was the patch cable style one. But the interesting thing about that was literally that she had to record onto 8 tracks. That's all she had. And each time you play a note, it's only one note that you could play. So you can't play a chord the way you can normally. So she would have to record a single note of a chord, rewind the tape, play the second note of that chord, rewind the tape again, play the third note of that chord if it's a 3-note chord. And that's how they create a whole chord. Then grab all those tape tracks and bounce it over to have that chord now playing on one single track. And you have to keep layering and layering.
Early sequencing.
Early sequencing, exactly. What is this right here? Is this like the first computer ever or what? This is actually the first digital sampler. It's called the Fairlight. It only gave you about 8 seconds maximum of sampling, but it stored everything to 8-inch floppy disk. The whole system was the computer, right, which had the voices in it, the keyboard, the ASCII keyboard, the monitor, and the light pen system. You could actually sit there and draw your own waveform and then play it back. But it originally came out in 1979. So if you think about it, the technology that this thing had compared to everything else that was out during that time period. The other guy that we were just talking about definitely would be Roger Linn. He designed something called the Linn 9000. That Linn 9000 is what became the predecessor to the whole Akai MPC series.
Now inside of here, is this a drum machine or is it just a sequencer?
It's a drum machine and sequencer. So it's just like the MPC. In fact, here is the first model, the MPC 60. See, after Roger Linn's company went under, he got hired by Akai because of his design for that Linn 9000. And you can see it's basically the same type of thing. In fact, they even put his name on it.
I have several drum machines, MPC 60, Roland 8080, 727, 626.
There's definitely a trend if you notice it. It's all Roland gear, from Juno, Jupiters, to the TR series drum machines.
The whole Roland series, I'm really into the sound. I mean, I've made a track using nearly all their machines.
The 909.
808.
808 drum machine.
The most classic of all drum machines. That would be the Roland TR-808. The way it programs, the sound, it just has a certain life to it that no other really new drum machine has been able to recreate it quite the same. In fact, most of the new drum machines even copy that style of programming. Mr. K from Roland started off making drum machines under the Ace Tone name, called the Rhythm Aces. And later, Roland started making their own products. In fact, this is the first Roland drum machine. This is the TR-33. Is that actual sequencer too, or? All you could do was literally push a button and hit start, and it would play a pattern, whether it was rumba, cha-cha, mambo, slow rock, waltz, whatever it might be.
You could change the tempo.
Yeah, you had tempo control, and then you also have balance, but that's about it. Interesting thing is that there's no start-stop button, it's just a touchpad. So you touched it, and it triggered the sequencer to go.
Electro's become so diverse, or electronic music, it's even hard to pinpoint, you know, what the real name or identity is of it is anymore.
Well, everywhere's got their own sort of individual styles, like sort of Holland, like Rotterdam, places like that. But there's like a really good scene there. It's a lot more sort of deeper, weirder, sort of more analog style.
In a big city, you get distracted every 5 minutes from the goal you wanted to go to. And over here, there's nothing to do, so you have plenty of time to work on your sound. Started off with the first record of Electro, 93, 94. There was No Landscape, released by IF on his own label. That record exploded. Just everybody went crazy and started producing electro. It took some time before electro became big in the Netherlands as well. The original is pretty based from Alkmaar. After that you got IF into electro, Italo disco.
Making the experimental music and being involved in the experimental way of approaching music was just a learning school for me to get my style into the electro music.
When you go to London, it's like completely dance floor.
We've had an explosion of club culture in this country.
For a lot of English producers, they're incorporating the old rave sound into their music.
Now we're injecting that back into electro. The electro you hear today is very influenced by everything that's happened in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's not just gone back to 1984, it's progressed.
But then there's also a deeper side.
I think the UK sound is definitely pushing that kind of deeper, groovier kind of feel, rather than just in your face kind of club vibe.
In England, it's been growing quite strong because I think with electro you can maintain the tempo and maintain the drive and the power because of the way the beats are. I don't know, it's just a little bit sexier. The girls like it a little bit more, you know. You can appeal to a techno crowd because it has, you know, the tempo's high enough. It has the power, but it's just not so in your face. You know what I mean? It's a little bit slinkier, it's a little bit sexier.
Bueno, la verdad que el hecho de vivir en España, el contacto que yo tuve con las primeras influencias dentro de la música electrónica fue, pues, me imagino, pues diferente al resto de países europeos, porque, por supuesto, aquí hemos tenido un cierto aislamiento, ¿no? Por supuesto, las influencias que tuvimos al principio pues eran, sobre todo, de grupos como Depeche Mode, New Order y toda esa ola de los 80 que venía forjándose. Pero bueno, quizás aquí en España los primeros grupos con los que pudimos empezar a ver que se podría llamar de música electrónica estaban un poco perdidos, ¿no?
I started listen electro body music in the 80s. In time, go records here and we listen and say, oh, Aux 88, Detroit Electro or Miami Bass, for example. No? We don't have a very good scene of a sound of Barcelona yet, and we learn about all the sounds.
European stuff is like experimental.
Minimalistic, like in Europe, you know, this new style, it's so straight and not melodies at all, you know, it's been changing a lot, like past 2 years. I think we are kind of trying to find a good solution of danceable beat, but still like melodic, listenable stuff. Not really straight on like beat-wise electro, what it's mostly now.
Living in the world of ultra violence, doesn't give much hope. Not a moment of silence.
Mono Chunk, he's been doing this shit like from 80s. One of the first releases from Finland came like early 90s, late 80s by him, you know. And Imatra Voima is a big influence in Helsinki. They are making kind of a Miami bass sound of Finland.
There's lots of our friends from the States as well, people like the Outside Recordings guys and the ELM guys. The music they're writing, it's really, really fresh, it's completely original.
I think it's just electro. He tried to start splitting it off, you know.
I think it's beats.
Some shit's weirder than other.
They're working music from the top to the bottom. They're literally making all their own sequencing programs, all their own synthesizers on computers, all their own sounds. It is literally completely original music. It's amazing, man. There's some really good stuff coming out.
I think more of the Florida stuff, because it's got like this strictly dancefloor music.
Just the climate of the place, you can just understand why bass happened here.
I want to thank y'all for coming out. It's the first time me and Jimbo have been together on stage in over 15 years, y'all.
Raving happened in England because of a certain cultural climate, and that's why bass happened here for the same sort of reasons. It's its own flavour, it's its own vibe.
They grew up to this music. They grew up to it. Like the people that were here tonight, they grew up to ghetto music and Miami bass and electro. They grew up with this stuff, so they're used to it. It's not like we had to break them into it. Miami bass was really popular here, so what a lot of these DJs did was they mixed the Miami bass records with like the Detroit techno and Detroit electro. So fucking bitch call my phone when I'm doing an interview, man. Hey, let me call you right back. There's a certain time where there's a few producers, we just took all these certain elements of music, like we took what we like out of Miami bass and we took what we like out of techno and we took the parts that we like out of electro and we took those little parts and stuck it in one record, and that's how Detroit Ghetto Tech came.
Here in Detroit, you had to know somebody or know somebody in the scene to even find out what those parts. It's still like that today. You still have to find out where the hippest parties are, because you won't find out even if you ride down the city now. It's not in the nightclubs, and you have to find somebody or either call a number to find out what's going on, and then be able to stay up all night to even enjoy it.
A lot of free raves going on in sort of 91, 92, and it was just mad. Every weekend I used to drive a van and used to just fill it up with people and just blast tunes, and we'd find out where the party was from the pirate radio station. They'd tell you the numbers to call, and it's crazy. Like, it was so exciting because the music was so exciting as well.
It was such a huge cultural change too. You'd go to a big rave in the early 90s and you'd go, wow, this is really exciting. You know, there's 2,000 people in this warehouse out in Brooklyn.
Like, there was a hardcore sort of breaks, drum and bass. You know, before it was called drum and bass, it was called hardcore. There's loads of different names like Ragga House and shit like that.
So ambient for between like 1990 and 1996 was called ambient, and then later they started to sort of transfer it over to IDM. But a lot of IDM that's made today is ambient music, or what we would call ambient back then.
It sort of mutated. It was amazing to watch this music grow into what it is now, like the drum and bass thing. I still love drum and bass a lot.
There were some parties, you know, the guys from Saka Recordings, if you know, like Pansonic and Jimmy Tenor and these guys, you know, they're friends. Small community keeping like parties in like all the industry buildings, and but we were so young, you know, so that time it was hard to get in still, you know.
I learned that there was all this music that was really awesome that I hadn't heard before, and I learned that there were these parties that were happening where you could hear music in a way that I'd never heard music before.
Basically, it's all about freedom. Throwing illegal parties over here, fresh beats, strange sounds, experimenting, but all dance floor orientated.
It took many years, like before I even knew what was electro. It was like middle 90s when everything came together, you know, and I know this, you know, we know this, you know. Okay, yeah, this is the thing, and of course that time, you know, then you knew what you want to buy.
I was basically buying more and more electro and was really getting into it and stuff like that, and I realised that there were certain kind of producers that I was really feeling and other things that I thought that I liked really, like I was really into, but they didn't seem to kind of work well in the club when I was playing them. So I suddenly noticed that some electro was more kind of dance floor friendly, and I thought that would be the kind of area that we would concentrate in.
I just wanted to release some records, just whatever that could be, and it happens that the people I met, they were doing some really interesting electro. It's a style I like because it's typical of the hard edge, yeah, more darker, and that's why I carried on doing records with these guys.
I look for tracks that you can play in a room of 1,000 people, or you can play in a room of 100 people. People that want to go out and dance and go crazy to music.
Queremos hacer un sello de amistades, de que podemos editar las cosas de nuestros amigos, ¿no? Da igual si es de un tipo de electro o de otro tipo, mientras sea electro es lo que nos interesa.
Our plan is to try and get electro out of the back room of clubs and into the main room, really, where all the action is.
A record shop called IQ Records. It was open for about 3.5, 4 years, and it was quite a mecca for underground electronic music. We never sold anything that we weren't truly into, and the shop was known for that. And when that closed down, it was sad. There was a few years of a gap where there wasn't really many people really trying to push good music. They'd sell little bits of it, but there wasn't people genuinely in a shop saying, look, buy this is really good music. They'd just give you a pile of 50 records and say, sift through that. I don't really believe that's the way music should be sold. I think it should be sold by people who are really enthusiastic about it. So the way I do it now is I basically get music straight from the labels, straight from small distributors that really care about the music. The music comes to me, it goes straight to the people that care about it, all the DJs, and the people that earn the money out of it then are the labels and the artists and the people who really, really do deserve to get something back out of this, and that way they can carry on doing what they're doing.
I think like publicly he doesn't get so much as he deserves anyways. He's like the ambassador for Electro, man. He's like trying to bring worlds together. It's like we got like a fucking from North Carolina to London to LA, you know, now Miami, you know what I'm saying? It's like really like he's the link for all of us anyways. So, but it's tight. We have a tight crew, man, for sure.
Yeah, they do have a tight crew. I agree.
Breaks FM. We've also got Agent 2, Stormfield, and ADJ in the house. Keep it locked. All good. Anyway, right about now, I'll do the news.
¿Qué es lo que más te impulsa o te motiva?
I get inspired by the synths themselves and the sounds, even though a lot of them could be like really similar. You can say, oh, this is an analog monosynth, and you know the SH-101's another analog monosynth. You know, what's the difference? But they all, you know, have very different sounds. They all have their own character.
Y bueno, a mí me motiva mucho, por supuesto, la tecnología, ¿no? Los avances tecnológicos, los problemas que genera en la sociedad a nivel social, incluso con un futuro cercano, ¿no? Me refiero a desde la clonación humana, problemas demográficos de que, pues bueno, la sociedad está creciendo y el planeta no lo puede soportar. Por supuesto, eso es suficiente motivación como para poder en un momento dado plasmar ideas, ¿no? Quizás un poco pesimistas, pero realmente no es pesimismo. Es un poco advertencia simplemente. Es una forma de llegar a los demás y explicar un poco lo que tú sientes ahí con lo que te rodea.
We should embrace technology. That's what electro is. And techno, I mean, it's techno electro anyway. It's like Kraftwerk, even they were influenced by other people. I mean, they were doing like acoustic music until they met Connie Plank. And then they did the Autobahn album when he produced it, and apparently he had a massive synth studio, and their music changed after that. And, you know, he went along, he later produced like, I think it was Rap Machine with Houdini.
I mean, really, we just want to give something back more than anything, because we've been inspired by a lot of stuff. We're all into it.
You never go into the studio and make a track thinking, right, I'm going to make a track that's going to sell 5,000 copies or something. You just go in and make the best track you can most of the time, you know.
Don't make any money out of selling records, basically.
No, there's no money in it. It's just like a business card, really. It gets you gigs.
The good thing is, yeah, that's a good thing.
Not really worried about sort of sales as much as we just want to break even and just get the music out there, and just, you know, so we can sort of say what we're wanting to say, but, you know, just do music, you know. That's
what a better way to spend your time than just doing what you love to do and getting to travel to places, and it doesn't really matter about record sales too much, you know.
You're not making all this much money. A lot of people are like, well, why would you pick a genre of music where you don't make that much money? I'm like, but you got to see the look on people's faces when they hear that, they appreciate it. These people have been listening to this music from the heart. Just know that Egyptian Lover makes the music for the DJs. I love the DJs. I'm making it for the DJs so the DJs can play it for the people, because the people who buy the records, who dance to the records, who love the music, that's what it's all about. Making them happy, making them dance, keeping them happy.
Have a good party. Have a good laugh.
And have good parties.
Which I think, like in a London/British sense, whatever I kind of took from London sense, that's where I'm from. At the end of the day, it is about having a good party, you know. And it's like whether you're a producer, a DJ, or a raver, that's what it's about, you know. That's what it's about.
Party, not standing about fucking posing.
Analysing, going, I'm a train spotter, that's done by this producer, that producer. At the end of the day, if it fucking rocks, it fucking rocks.
Same thing, I want everyone to have a good laugh. Because I think that's the bit that people forgot for a while. And all of a sudden you go out and people are actually dancing again, and I think it's nice to actually see people having fun. And that's the reason that we all got into it, because we had fun when we went out.
Like a scene building that support the true sound of electro, but on a whole it's a very small, close-knit scene. It's got quite a way to go yet, but there's definitely something building up.
There could be improvements because the music should be recognised, you know, and acknowledged, and obviously we are not, you know.
I think it should. I mean, even if it did climb at a few more levels, it's still not going to be anywhere near as commercial or as big as like house or trance or anything else as shite as that, you know what I mean?
This is what keeps us underground, and that's okay, because that's where we come from, you know. We've always been underground in the sense that we've never really commercialised our sound.
It's still not going to lose its underground thing, even if it tripled its output, you know what I mean? It's so low-key still.
Just doing your own thing with electronic music. So, I mean, that's what I want to see. It's more people being more individual and just doing their own projects and just getting out there and progressing the whole music. So I think if you start getting it too kind of honed down to a style or a sound, then everyone will stop being creative and they'll just kind of get stuck in a rut. I think it's better that people develop individually and do their thing, definitely. Who knows what it'll sound like? Hopefully it'll sound like nothing we can imagine. That's what I hope, that it sounds like, you know, something completely new and bizarre and crazy, but really good. That's what I would hope. I guess the whole point is that we can't know what it's going to sound like, or else it hasn't done its job, you know. If it still sounds the same as it sounds now, then something's gone wrong.
El seguir avanzando como lo está haciendo, el seguir compartiendo ideas entre los diferentes estilos, entre los diferentes artistas, entre los sellos.
If you are making music, if you are DJing or whatever, you know, you've got to remember that the scene doesn't exist, it's transparent. You've got to go and create your own scene. You've got to create your own system. You've got to go out there, and if you haven't got a club night going on, start a club night. That's what I did. If you haven't got a record label to put your music out on, start your own record label. I think people need to just remember, you know, essentially what it's about and how much effort it takes to put music out. It takes to run a record label. It takes to run a club.
They have to watch what happens on worldwide. They will lose a lot of good music.
To open the mind.
Yeah.
You know, believe in what you do, and you know, just seek out as much information, technology, support, and also inspiration, and you know, networking with other people in the community, because that's what keeps it going, and that's why it's still going now. That's why you're talking to me and I'm talking to you.
I mean, Simon Brown said to me recently, what are you going to do, Phil, when electro just disappears again? You know, you're going to be out of it, you're not going to get any work. I said, yeah, I know, and I'll probably still carry on making it, and I probably will. But that's just what I'll do, I suppose. Maybe it'll come round for a third time, who knows. I'll be about 50 odd.
Maybe it's run away.
Never know, dear.
That's what I love about it. It's never gone away, really.
It hasn't really, no, yeah, I suppose not. But the true people who have been making it for this long, who are still going to carry on making it, are still going to make tracks for themselves or for, you know, for the people that love it.
Ya está. ¿Algo que añadir?
Don't stop the bass. Yeah, enchève the bass.
Cut the mid-range and drop the bass.
Yeah, that's good enough for me as well. Yeah, that's about it, thanks.
We're gonna get run over by the garbage truck in a minute, so we gotta stop recording, man. But hopefully your journey to Detroit was good. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for coming out.
Return your sound system back to you.